When you saw the updates today, you only saw 30,000 instead of the 51. However, the universe of ballots that I communicated yesterday is still accurate. The only thing you need to do is take it down approximately 20,500 from the 51 to the 30,000. But the 63,000 ballots that I reported yesterday are in the system in various stages. So those will still expected to be reported. Beginning today, we will begin to report our results 2 times a day. So you've already seen the update for this morning. In the afternoon, we will be putting up a fresh report on the mail ballots that have been read into the system sometime before 4 o'clock. We're required to report to the Secretary of State first. Once they've indicated to us that they've received it and it's verified, we'll be able to post on our end. So rather than give you a specific time, I'll just tell you that it'll be sometime before 4 p.m. Now, one more time, I'd like to go through the ballots that are separate from that universe that I reported. We still have the provisional ballots. All of our laptops from Election Day have been downloaded, so all of that information is available to my staff. Today, we will start in earnest reviewing provisional ballots. There are 60,000 of those to go through in various categories. Now, I want to remind you that we have to coordinate with the Secretary of State because, again, we are not a top-down registration state. We work from the bottom up. So all 17 counties have to report to the Secretary. They still have not given me the instructions. I know that they're on the way, but at some point they'll let us know when to send our report up, and that will be the tool that they use to match against the other 16 counties in Nevada to make sure that nobody's duplicated a vote in one county to the next, because we want to prevent that. Once we do that, we can begin to release the provisional ballots into count. However, that won't happen until the Secretary of State verifies that report. A reminder that the ID required voters, their deadline is today at 5 p.m. For those who were required to provide an ID, that has to be sent to us by 5 p.m. today. We have a cure line available at 702-455-6552, where we have staff available to assist those individuals with getting that into us. The U.S. mail update for this morning. We received 241 ballots in today's mail that will be added to that number that I'm calling my universe of ballots to be counted. It's looking pretty clear that the number of ballots is going to continue to go down. However, I wanted to ensure the general public, we have been working very close with our regional supervisor at the U.S. Postal Service, and they're doing an excellent job of reviewing all of the post stations here in Clark County. In fact, they have them sweeping regularly more than once on a daily basis, and if they identify anything that needs to be delivered to the office, they get it to our office within 3 to 4 hours. It doesn't even go to the process of having it set up for us to pick up. They are physically delivering those. So we appreciate their effort. They're making sure, just as we are, that we're counting every ballot that's eligible to be counted. So our thanks to the U.S. Postal Service locally. The cure process is another group of ballots that we need to process. They have until Thursday, the 12th of November, to cure that. My staff will not leave this facility until we've counted all of those ballots that have been identified as curable. AB 4 was very clear in the legislative special session that we have to have all ballots counted by November 12th. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. Remember, you need to be at the mic. Good morning, right there. Right there, whoever's due. Yeah.
Good afternoon, or good morning, Mr. Registrar. Yes. Can you tell us the number of ballots that you expect in this afternoon dump? So you said the 31,000 was the total for this morning. It won't be, or 30,000. It won't be.
It was not 31,000.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
30. Can you? So let's just be clear here.
30,403 was the increase.
30,403. This afternoon, before 4 p.m., how many do you expect?
Because we're starting to dump 2 reports a day, I can't accurately give you that number. The only thing that I can tell you is the numbers that I reported as my universe of ballots that need to be counted is still accurate. So we know we're going to need to get approximately 63,000 ballots into the system.
So still 63, go ahead, I'm sorry.
63,000 over the next couple of days will be entered into the system.
Okay, so 63,000 still outstanding, 30,000 this morning, and TBD, you don't know how many this afternoon.
No, I can't give you that number accurately because we've changed to a 2 report in the day. And so they're going to work as hard as they can. They're being very efficient back there in the way that they count through the ICCs. So we'll get as many in as we can, and then we'll continue to read after that report, and there will be another report tomorrow morning with whatever we read this afternoon and evening.
Okay, thanks. This is my colleague, Jolene Kent.
Hello,
Thank you, Jacob. I know we talked about the pace yesterday, but there's increasing pressure on your county to count faster. You have the capacity to count 71,000 ballots a day. Why not process that number, Joe?
As I described yesterday, the process is very deliberate in the way we process here. So through the Agilis, which is our mail ballot processing system, that's the first step. That Agilis machine will verify signatures, and then those that aren't verified as a match, that has to go to a manual physical process. And there are 2 steps in that process where we have staff running through those. We have to run those through those 2 steps, and then at that point it moves to our counting board. Our counting board then works to verify those records to make sure that our batches are matching and that we're reconciling correctly. And they go through the process of separating the ballots and getting them over here for us to count. So there's no speeding up that process. As I indicated yesterday, we're going to continue to count and make sure that we're being accurate. We're anticipating and hoping that with the number of ballots that we see now, we should hopefully be ready to have a final count on the majority of mail ballots by Sunday at some time.
By Sunday. And what's your message to all of the people out there watching Clark County who say, come on, let's go, hurry it up?
I think I mentioned yesterday that our priority here is to make sure that we're accurate in what we're doing. So we're not interested in moving as fast as we can. We want to be accurate. We're very fortunate at this point that we've had staff working for many days and they're very efficient in what they're doing. So we're confident that the work is being done accurately. And that's what our main goal is.
Can you talk about the circumstances that require an ID? What are those ID required ballots? Because there's quite a lot of them. And how are those different from the other ballots that need to be cured?
The easiest explanation for the cure is that those voters who send back a mail ballot that is not signed at all, or that has a signature that doesn't match all of our history of signatures in the system, they enter into the cure process. That's statutorily required, and we have to mail a notice to the voter. And if the voter has given us an email or a phone number, we also contact them through an automated message with that as well. Those are the cures. The ID required can come from many different areas. In the state of Nevada now, we've implemented same-day registration. The online registrations that go through the Secretary of State's NOVA site, state law requires that those voters show up to vote. Our system indicates that they registered online, they're required to show an ID. So they showed up to vote in person, either early voting or election day, and they didn't have their ID. So they're required to provide that by today at 5 p.m. in order for those votes to count. We also have a large number of mail ballots. Everybody's well aware that we've sent a mail ballot to all active registered voters in Clark County. So there's not as much familiarity from the general public on what to do with a mail ballot. We very clearly indicate on the mailing envelope those voters who need to send in an ID, because in their registration, we were unable to match correctly with our check with DMV or Social Security, and so they must provide an ID in order for us to hold up the integrity of the process. So in those 2 groups, that's a majority of the IDs that are required. Next question.
Joe, a new federal lawsuit has, from the Trump campaign, has requested that the use of the Agilis system be stopped completely, and that instead all ballots be verified by hand, the signatures be verified by hand. What would that do to the counting process if your access to Agilis is lost?
If they were successful, I will mention that that's already been heard in court and that request was denied. So we're hoping that stays consistent. However, if we were unable to use the Agilis machine, we're working hard to get everything through now, so we won't have to worry about that, but that would slow down our process tremendously because we've geared our process to count on the Agilis machine. So we would have to go completely manual at that point. And so, yeah, it would slow down our process without a doubt. Next question.
So the Nevada GOP has confirmed this morning that they have dropped or have come into an agreement with the county on the lawsuit that was issued yesterday. Can you comment on that?
Your question was that the Nevada GOP has...
They've confirmed that the campaign has dropped the federal lawsuit that was issued out yesterday.
Well, I may be incorrect, but I think they've reinstituted that. So I don't know if you have the current information.
Okay. From last week.
Hi, Mr. Gloria. Just to be completely clear, yesterday you said there were 63,262 outstanding ballots, correct?
Correct.
Today we have those 30,000, that new batch, and then, so the outstanding ballots would be around 30...
No, sir. No, that's incorrect.
33,000?
You're confusing the two numbers that I reported. So yesterday, what I stated was that we expected to see 51,000 ballots read yesterday.
Correct.
Because the page numbers were reported mistakenly instead of the precinct count. That count went down from 51 to 30.
Right.
So
but
the 63,000,
outstanding ballot...
let me finish. So the 63,000 are still in process and need to be counted.
So bottom line, I mean, outstanding ballots right now, out of that number of 63,000, still 63,000 24 hours later?
That is correct. 63,000. I wish you'd come to the mic so that I could hear you well. Anybody who wants to ask a question, please take the time to come up front. We're going to go right here.
Mr. Gloria, you mentioned receiving, I think, 241 ballots through the Postal Service today. How many do you know have you received since Election Day?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not prepared with the entire total. I have in yesterday's press conference, I believe that I mentioned that, oh no, I do have it here. So for Election Day and Wednesday, the mail intake was 4,208. Next question.
Good morning. In the lawsuit that was filed today, in addition to asking for the Agilis machine to be stopped again, they also allege that there were 3,000 plus instances of ineligible ballots which were cast. Do you have any evidence of that has been given to you, and do you have any knowledge of those 3,000 ballots that the Nevada GOP is alleging?
They provided us with a list. We'll have to begin to look through that. However, their lawsuit is based on something that happens regularly. You don't have to live here in order to be eligible to vote here. This is a military town. We have Nellis Air Force Base. We also have several students that travel outside of the state to go to school. Those folks are eligible to vote here in Nevada. We also have local representatives, congressmen, senators. They're up in Washington working, but they live here, they vote here. So we'll have to look through those numbers, but it's not out of the ordinary at all for somebody not to live here, but be eligible to vote here. So we will look at that and we'll review it. You need the mic.
Sorry, just to quickly follow up on the number of military ballots, sort of related but separate. You had also said the other day that's part of what you're going through in addition to provisional ballots. How many outstanding military ballots are there? Do you know?
The military ballots have been read into the system.
Hi. Oops, sorry. Can I just clarify the math?
Yes.
Total number of outstanding ballots, including the provisional, is what?
The provisional are beginning to be looked at in earnest today because all of the data has been dropped.
Just give me the number.
I'll answer the question. The provisional count will be 60,000.
Okay.
Mail ballots that still need to be run through the system and are expected to run through for count is 63,262 approximately.
Okay, and are we subtracting 30,000 from that 63 or not?
No.
So none of the 63 have been counted?
No, sir.
So where's that 30,000 number that you mentioned when you
It's
first
in your
started?
report today. Check the website, clarkcountynv.gov/vote.
Okay, but so that why isn't that coming out of the 63?
Because I mentioned yesterday that we had 51,000 ballots to count. That was incorrect because I was given the number of pages.
Right.
30,000 is in the system and reported this morning.
So 30,000. So there's still 63,000 and the 60,000 beyond the 30,000.
Don't mumble.
So 30,000 were counted yesterday.
That is correct.
There are still 63,000 mail ballots to be counted?
That is correct.
And 60,000 provisional.
Those won't all be counted.
More or
Some of
less.
them won't meet the requirements for them to be registered, but they need to be reviewed.
Okay, and what are the hours of the counting?
The hours of what, sir?
What are the hours that your people are working on the count?
I can have a member of my staff make that available.
And how many people roughly are involved in this process?
At least 300.
Really? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gloria, at the risk of going back to math, from 51,000, we reported 30,000. Does that leave 21,000?
No, sir.
Okay. And?
I started out by explaining that the numbers I reported yesterday were incorrect, and I gave an explanation as to why.
Okay.
Our staff at the counting board incorrectly, mistakenly, provided me with the number of pages that they sent over to be read. However, that was not the number of precinct ballots. Every ballot in Nevada that's sent to the voters represents 2 pages. And so there were actually only 30,000 ballots that were read. So I've corrected that and explained to you why that occurred.
So the 63,262 and no more than that?
No, there could be more. We still have cures, we still have IDs that need to be, and we still have provisionals.
And then
those are all outside of the universe that I've been reporting.
And then the final are the 241 that you said you received by the mail.
That's today, sir.
Included,
today through the mail, and that will continue to be received through next Tuesday.
Are they included in 63,262?
No, sir. Those are outside of that.
And thank you.
Joe, I think the all of the confusion lays in why hasn't that number gone down? What happened between, not with the misreporting of the number, but why hasn't the number of ballots that were counted gone down? Between
if you're
yesterday
referring
and
to
today.
the 63,000 as
Correct.
we speak, they're reading them into the system, some of those. So it is going down. It's just not in this morning's report. This morning's report only goes up to the end of day yesterday. And so they're now processing those. We'll have some numbers to report just before 4 o'clock on that 63,000, and we'll continue to do so until we're finished with all of those ballots.
Joe, right here. So, and I'm staying on the math. Sorry, I'm right here. Staying on the math, so is it 63,000 and then the additional 60,000 provisional ballots? Does that mean, is it 123,000? Or am I confusing that as well?
60,000 provisional ballots need to be reviewed. They won't all be eligible to be cast. But yes, they still need to be reviewed. But I can't tell you how many of those will be moved forward to count.
The GOP has asked the Department of Justice to investigate some of the, and I'm just wondering if you received the list of the voters' names that they're looking into, and what's your...
I need you to be more specific with what list you're referring to. Is it in the lawsuit that they recently provided, or is there a list that I'm not aware of?
Regarding they're asking the Department of Justice to investigate.
I don't know anything about that. I can't answer that question.
A deal was struck allowing more servers to come in. Can you go into detail about that deal?
I can't hear you.
There was a deal. Observers to come in. Do you have any information regarding that deal? It's part of that lawsuit from last week that was cleared.
I believe that we agreed to provide some more observer locations in our counting board's location.
Okay.
But they've rescinded that, so I'll have to talk to my civil DA.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't a good math student. I'm trying to get like a final tally of what we're expecting. So there's 63,000 provisional ballots that need to be reviewed, correct?
Correct.
In addition to that, there's another 60,000 ballots that aren't provisional that need to be
That are provisional, but those won't all be qualified to vote. They need to be reviewed.
I understand it, but ballpark for me. So are we looking at 120,000 ballots need to be reviewed and are audited and counted, or is it 63,000 and change?
Let's make sure and clarify that there's 2 types of tally types that you're referring to. Provisional is electronic. Those are voted on the in-person voting machines. The mail that I'm referring to is separate. That's a different tally type. So that's the 63,000. So there's some electronic ballots that were voted provisionally that all need to be reviewed. They're held in queue. So they won't actually be counted until my staff correctly identifies whether they were eligible to be counted. So that's separate, but there's 60,000 plus the 63,000 that I've been referring to
So
on
there's
mail.
roughly, just clarify for me, we're looking at roughly 123,000 ballots that still have to be reviewed, audited, and or counted. Is that correct?
That's what I'm reporting, but you need to keep in mind that we still have no ID voters that can show up. We still
I'm
have
not done
cures that can still show up, and we also have U.S. mail.
Okay.
So I'd love to make it easier for you, but it's
No,
a complicated process.
I
So
think we all appreciate
what
it.
I'm
We
trying
just
to
need a-
do is give you the numbers on the large.
Sure. I think
what
we
that's
just all
available.
need a ballpark to be able to accurately report. We don't
So
want to say 60,000. when
I
it's
think
actually
it's fair to say that the 63,000 mail and the 60,000 provisional are the largest chunks left that we have to review.
And again, not to misquote you, or I hope I didn't misunderstand, but you anticipate having those completed, counted by Sunday? Is that
The
what
mail.
you said? The mail.
And
So
we're
what's that
hoping to
number
have
again?
the mail done by Sunday if all goes well.
And that number again is what? I'm sorry. 60,000.
63,000.
Okay. Okay. So you're
Okay.
anticipating 63 more thousand ballots being completed, counted by Sunday, and then there's the other 60,000 that still have to be reviewed, which we'll go through next week.
You've got it.
Thank you.
Next question.
Can I change away from math for a moment? How's your security? We've been
Outstanding.
reading about situation in Philadelphia. Have there been any credible threats to your knowledge to the voting count or your facilities in and around Las Vegas?
I really can't release any of the reports on anything that would be credible. We keep that within our law enforcement group, and they are dealing with it. I can tell you that they're monitoring social media for any threatening type of messages. As you can see, when you came today, we have a relatively large force of law enforcement plus our county security that's here in place. So I feel that the response has been excellent from the community, from the commissioners who called to make sure that we had that support. But it's just troubling for my employees. I have employees who are nervous leaving the building, and rightfully so. They work late into the night, so we've strongly encouraged all of them not to leave by themselves. They can also request an escort from our security people or law enforcement. So we're doing everything we can to protect our employees. And I think the response from local law enforcement and the assistance we received from our county commission has helped to make sure that that happens. So we're doing the best we can.
Folks, we have 2 more questions.
Speaker.
How about yesterday that you plus these numbers? To yesterday we have 44,000 ID requiring ballots and 2,100 ballots in the queue process. Is the same number today?
You know what? I was looking for you. Can you do that again? I didn't see you. I'm sorry. Should you just say it again?
Yesterday we're talking about 44,000 ID requiring ballot, and today and yesterday we have 2,100 ballots in the queue process. Is the same number today?
I would have to run that report for you. I did not come prepared with those numbers. But those were accurate yesterday.
Today we still have 40,400.
As I mentioned, outside of that universe of numbers, the mail and the provisional, we still have the ID required, we still have the cures, and we still have the U.S. mail that still has to come through. So yes, the answer to your question is those people are still eligible if they bring us an ID to have their ballot counted. One more question. Where is it?
Last question right here.
Last question right here.
Joe, can you talk about the settlement that came with the lawsuit going into last week, the reason behind it, and just anything moving forward?
I could just briefly say that the Republicans had communicated to our legal team that they were willing to drop their suit if we would provide some additional locations in an area that we were providing it as a courtesy. Again, I remind all of you, the only thing that is statutorily required for observers is we allow them to watch us count and tally votes, which is happening right behind us. Everything else that we've provided is provided as a courtesy. We're not required by law to do so. But That's what the settlement dealt with. But they've rescinded it, so I'll have to talk to my civil DA to see where we're at with that. Thank you all very much. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Joe, the DOJ is alleging criminal voter fraud. Have you seen any evidence of